I'll never forget the day my 6-year-old son Tommy was the object of our neighborhood HOA president's ire. It was a blistering Saturday afternoon in July, the kind where the asphalt melts and everyone is looking for relief from the heat. Tommy was having the time of his life in our front yard, spraying his new water blaster with glee and laughing as the cool spray brought sweet relief from the 90-degree. That lovely vignette was destroyed in an instant when a high-pitched voice pierced the air like a knife. "What are you doing?" "That is strictly against HOA regulations." It was the voice of Deborah Wilkins, but all of us in Oakwood Estates called her Karen, the self-proclaimed keeper of our neighborhood's rule book. She stormed across our yard in her immaculately pressed khaki capri and polo shirt, her face twisted with outrage. I was already reacting from where I had been watering plants in the area before I had even seen her walk up to Tommy and disconnect the garden hose from his water blaster and shut off the spigot. "This neighborhood has standards," she snarled as my son's face contorted. Tears threatened to well up in his eyes. His afternoon of carefree fun wiped out in an instant. I had relocated to Oakwood Estates only 4 months prior to my promotion. The neighborhood looked great. Good schools, nice homes, and a community pool. What the real estate agent conveniently omitted was Deborah Wilkins, HOA president for 11 consecutive years. During that period, she had evolved from a regular community volunteer to a suburban tyrant who used the HOA bylaws as her own personal club. Since we arrived, I'd already been sent 2 courtesy notices regarding my trash cans being outside for over 12 hours past collection, and a warning regarding the shade of blue I'd painted my porch furniture. Each time, I'd replied with politeness, making the necessary adjustments while silently rolling my eyes. But this, frightening my child, was one boundary that no parent could abide. "Deborah, away from my son immediately," I said, maintaining a steady voice. Though rage was building within me, I stepped between the two and placed my hand on Tommy's shoulder. He was still sniffling, bewildered as to why this strange woman was so upset about his water toy. She held up a crumpled, laminated piece of paper in my face. Section 7, Paragraph 3 of the Community Bylaws explicitly states that excessive outdoor water usage is not allowed because of the possibility of lawn damage and concerns about water conservation. Her finger pointed to a highlighted portion that, from what I could see, appeared to be talking about irrigation systems, not kids playing. "That has nothing to do with a child playing with a water toy for 30 minutes on a hot day," I said, my professional negotiation skills being pushed to their limits. "Now please leave our property." But Deborah was only getting started. "This is the same sort of irresponsible thing that drives down house values. Well, it starts with water toys, then unkempt lawns. Before long, we're residing in a slum." Her voice increased in intensity each sentence, drawing neighbors on either side of our residence into the fray. "The penalty for this infraction begins at $200. And I will be suggesting that the board levy the maximum fine. In addition, I'm writing this down as reference in case further action required." My patience was wearing thin as I escorted Tommy to our front door. "Go in, buddy. Grab a glass of lemonade from the fridge. I'll take care of this." He was safely in. I turned to face Deborah, now taking pictures of the little puddles on our lawn. "This discussion is finished, Deborah. You've scared my child and invaded our property. There is no rule in the bylaws that a child cannot play with water. I've read them from cover to cover." I was impressed with how steady I sounded when my heart was racing. Her eyes narrowed perilously. "Oh, you think you're smarter than me? I've been in charge of this HOA since before you even knew what those letters meant. And allowing your child to waste water in such a way, that's neglect. Perhaps Child Protective Service interested in how you're monitoring your son." That was when I felt something change within me. This wasn't an overbearing neighbor. This was a threat to my family. "Did you just threaten to call CPS? My son was playing with the water toy?" I asked. By this time, 2 neighbors had come out of their houses, attracted by Deborah's growing, louder rant. Mrs. Chen from the other side of the street had her phone in hand, seemingly filming this. The Johnsons next door were on their porch with worried faces. I know the support for what it was. I wasn't the initial victim of Deborah's HOA crusade. "I'm requesting you one last time to depart my property," I said firmly. "This is absurd, and you're aware of that." But Deborah dug in more firmly on my grass. "I'm not moving until I've finished my inspection. This is an obvious infraction, and in my role as HOA president, I am authorized and obligated to record it." She drew out her phone. "Indeed, I'm contacting the police as of now. They need to see your obstruction of HOA operations." I nearly giggled at the ridiculousness of it all. "Call them, please. I'd love to hear their interpretation of this situation." Deborah dialed 911 with flair, her acrylic nails tapping on her phone screen. "Yes, hello. I must make a complaint about a homeowner who is hindering me from conducting my duties as an HOA president. He's letting his kid destroy community property using too much water, and now he's getting aggressive." She gave me a smug glance when she provided my address to the dispatcher. I stood patiently, arms folded, as Deborah kept building up her version of things. Mrs. Chen walked further towards us, still documenting. Mr. Johnson shouted out from his patio, "Deborah, that child was merely playing around. Leave them be already." That just added to her anger. "Mind your own business, Ron. Your hedges are 3 inches over regulation height, so you're not exactly a poster child for rule followers yourself." A little while later, approximately 15 minutes, a police car showed up in front of my house. Officer Martinez got out looking professional, but a bit tired, the expression of someone who had dealt with neighborhood conflicts previous. Another officer whose nameplate was Wilson approached him. "What appears to be the matter here?" Officer Martinez inquired, looking from me to her. Before I could reply, Deborah began her story. "This property owner is letting his child disregard clearly defined HOA rules about water usage. When I tried to speak to him about the violation, he became obstructionist and refused to respond to my authority as HOA president." Officer Martinez looked at me, questioning eyebrow. "My 6-year-old son was in our front yard with a water toy," I told her calmly. "Ms. Wilkins entered our property without an invitation, scared my child by screaming at him, physically detached his toy, and then would not leave when repeatedly asked to do so. She also threatened to call Child Protective Services about a water toy." I pointed to Mrs. Chen. "My neighbor has been taping since a little after this started." Officer Wilson nodded to Mrs. Chen. "Ma'am, would you please show us that tape?" Deborah interrupted. "None of that matters whatsoever. The matter of concern is breach of HOA. Ms. Wilkins, I ask that you please let us complete our investigation," Martinez said curtly. "You'll get a turn to be heard." Mrs. Chan drew nearer and revealed to the officers the phone she held. The video was seen grave expressions, looking sometimes back at Deborah's face that reddened even further. "Just so you can visualize," I explained, "there's a patch of damp grass over here that in an hour won't be visible. No hurt, no extravagant use of water, just the kid playing around on a steamy day." Deborah just couldn't hold herself. "The bylaws clearly state." "Do you have a copy of these bylaws with?" Officer Wilson inquired. With victorious flourish, Deborah pulled out her laminated highlighted copy from her purse. "Section 7, paragraph 3. She stated, pushing it in the direction of the officers. Officer Martinez read out, "Irrigation systems shall be maintained to avoid overspray, runoff, and waste of water. Watering limited to specified days per city ordinance." He glanced up. "This doesn't say anything about kids playing with water toys. It's implied," Deborah continued to insist, her voice rising once more. "All water use is subject to these regulations, and as HOA president, I am the last word on interpretation." More neighbors had shown up now, and I saw several with their phones in hand. Deborah's act was becoming quite the neighborhood show. Ms. Wilkins, Officer Martinez replied matter-of-factly, "There's nothing in this paper that prevents a child from playing with water toys on private property. Now, I know you're worried about HOA rules, but you can't go onto someone's property without permission and disrupt their family activities based on your reading of rules that don't specifically cover the situation." Deborah's face reened further. "So, you're going to just allow him to make fun of our community standards? That's the reason property values decrease, because police don't enforce rules. The police enforce laws, not HOA rules." Officer Wilson explained calmly, "Now this homeowner has already asked you to leave his property a few times. I'm going to have to request you to do so." That was when Deborah really lost it. "This is ridiculous. I've worked 11 years to uphold the standards of this community. I won't be brushed aside like some ordinary trespasser. I have the right to inspect infractions." She started waving her arms wildly, her voice rising to a pitch that sent nearby birds flying. "Ma'am, you need to quiet down and calm down," Officer Martinez advised. But Deborah was past wings. She tried to push the officers aside, stating, "I need to measure the affected area and document the water damage." When Officer Wilson put out a hand to stop her, she swatted at his arm. "Dare touch me. Do you have any idea who I am? I golf with the police chief's wife." The officers shared a glance I was all too familiar with from my corporate negotiating days. The unspoken message that means, "We tried the nice guy approach, but that obviously isn't working. Ms. Wilkins, you're under arrest for trespassing, disorderly conduct, and attempting to push an officer," Martinez stated calmly, reaching for his handcuffs. "This is assault. Police brutality." Deborah shrieked as they secured the cuffs around her wrists. "I was performing my duties as HOA president. You'll all be hearing from my attorney." Section 12, paragraph 4 clearly states that HOA board members have inspection rights. As they guided her toward the cruiser, she continued her tirade about water conservation, property values, and the imminent collapse of civilized society, all supposedly triggered by my son's water toy. The next day, the video of Deborah's meltdown had spread throughout not just our neighborhood, but the entire town. Mrs. Chen's recording had been supplemented by footage from at least 3 other neighbors, creating a comprehensive chronicle of the HOA president's spectacular downfall. 3 days later, I received an official email from the HOA board secretary. They had held an emergency meeting and voted unanimously to remove Deborah from her position as president, effective immediately. The email also included an apology to my family and a clarification that no rule prohibiting children's water play existed in any version of the bylaws, current or historical. The cherry on top came when Deborah's case went before the judge the following week. She was fined $800 for disorderly conduct and resisting an officer, plus ordered to pay court costs and complete 20 hours of community service, specifically working at the city's water conservation garden. The trespassing charge would be dropped if she finished the community service and avoided my property for 1 year. Standing in the courtroom, listening to her sentence, her face turned as white as a ghost. "But, Your Honor," she complained half-heartedly, "I was just trying to uphold the rules." The judge just gave her mouth shut, and Deborah Wilkins' 11-year reign as the neighborhood's most dreaded HOA president ended in ignominy.